What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by only one Titan this week, only one, Jurg. You're here with me. Dame is back in Nashville, scouting for the Titans, of course. But I have you, the more important member. How are we doing this week?
What a poor fate to have to scout for that trash franchise, eh? That absolute poverty. But no, Chris, I'm doing good, man. Like I've been saying it in the end slate for a couple weeks now, but it's really the summer, bro. It's just hit 90 degrees this past weekend. I'm pretty sure it's the same by you. It's beautiful weather, bro. And I'm in such a good mood, Chris, but because I was just thinking today, like we've come a long way. We're about 2.5 years into this podcast now. And we've done a bunch of episodes, and I'm excited. Months ago we had episode number 100, which we kind of didn't realize was number 100, so we didn't make a big deal out of it. But soon enough, we're gonna keep launching up. And you know what I'm excited for, Chris? I'm excited for this episode. I'm excited for next episode. I'm excited for us to get to episode number 150. And then after episode 150, Chris, is 151. And there's just something about the number 151 that it feels good right now, doesn't it?
Well, Jurg, I'm pretty sure you have you're going to tie that bow once we get there, because I feel like there's a cap off to a joke that's coming, and I
Oh,
really
I
feel it.
will.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. I knew it. Some of the viewers may not know it, who are not familiar with the mathematics behind it, but I know it. Like you said, 150, you get to 151, still not getting paid for it, of course, but that's how life is. But yeah, we have a stacked week, I'd say. Jurg, I'm pretty sure you have a lot to say, but the Stanley Cup is here. The NBA Finals are here. Coaches being hired left and right, which is a stark contrast to a few weeks ago where coaches were being fired left to right. But we did expect some of the names that did get fired to be hired by other teams. The rundown for this week: Stanley Cup preview, the Las Vegas Golden Knights versus the Florida Panthers, I believe.
Yes,
And
sir.
then, of course, we're going to be discussing the coaches that did get hired. I believe there's three of them. And then, of course, we'll do our NBA Finals preview. Jurg, do you like that rundown?
I love it.
Okay, beautiful. So let's start off with the Stanley Cup. Jurg, you're the hockey connoisseur here. Florida, like I said, Florida Panthers versus the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Is it Vegas or Las Vegas Golden Knights?
Most people say Vegas. Like, we keep it short.
Yeah, that's why. Like, I always wondered that. I'm like, why is everyone like forgetting the loss part? But whatever. Neither here nor there. Now, Jurg, obviously you preview it, but let me throw a couple questions at you. A, you personally, are you excited for this matchup? And B, you know, Las Vegas, Florida, not two places that are synonymous with hockey, right? I know Las Vegas is like the up and coming place where like a lot of sports expansions are occurring
Yep.
at. Oakland A's are eventually going to be there. Am I right?
Yeah.
I know the NBA probably behind the scenes wants a team there.
Yep.
And and Golden Knights going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So
For the second time in franchise history.
like that's pretty impressive, right? So obviously the appeal is there. How important is this type of matchup? How important is it for hockey in terms of just like any mainstream media exposure perspective, right? In
Yeah.
terms of like getting more notoriety in the West, like, and I don't want to say it's important, like it's the end all be all, but like this matchup being the finals matchup, does it do a lot for hockey in the mainstream aspect of it? Because again, Florida, Las Vegas, not synonymous with hockey, but there's going to be more eyes on it now because of the two places not being synonymous with hockey, right? People that don't usually view hockey will be watching this matchup for, you know, this reason. So talk to me about all that.
Yeah, so to your first question, I am definitely excited. I'm excited every single year for the Stanley Cup Final. By hook or by crook, it doesn't matter if my team's not in. My team has been in a goddamn final since 2015, but I'm still excited every single year because I just love hockey as a whole. And I'm excited that it's these two teams. We'll get more into the detail of the matchup in a few moments, but I think these are two really good teams that are just at the right time, are showing their strengths, are showing how good they are, and this is not a case scenario where it's the two best teams going against one another. I think that was the case last year's Stanley Cup Final, not necessarily this year's Stanley Cup Final, because honestly, these were two teams that, especially Florida, not a lot of people picked to make it this far. And Vegas, some people would have thought, myself included, admittedly, that they could have been a first round upset candidate, but clearly not the case. When it's two teams that a lot of people thought were going to both lose in the first round and both make it to the Cup Final, it's quite a postseason. But it just goes to show how intense, how crazy the NHL playoffs are. So I'm extremely excited for the Stanley Cup Final. Your first question there, Chris. The second question, I think this is great for the game in terms of continuing to build hockey outside of its regular areas, because it's not even so much about growing the game in the US. It's about growing the game in areas where you can untap something. I always say one of the nexus points in NHL history in terms of growing the game in America, but especially in like the West and the South, was Wayne Gretzky being traded to the Los Angeles Kings. That completely opened up the West Coast to hockey. It transformed hockey in California, where you have California, where you have Arizona, states like that that have legitimate solid youth hockey programs now that produce decent talent that gets drafted. Austin Matthews, current Toronto Maple Leaf, arguably maybe the best American born player. Some people would say no longer after this postseason, but one of the top two, top three American born players. Arizona, like he's an Arizona kid. I forget which draft it was off the top of my head. I want to say it was maybe the 2011 or 2012 draft, maybe 2010. It was one of those three drafts that had two kids drafted in the first round that were California born natives. This is unbelievable. Like the growth of the game has continued, and like this is not a case where the programs don't matter. I think hockey is definitely has grown to a point where people can and do care about it. When you consider also the LA Kings winning the Stanley Cup in 2012 and 2014, the success there, the Tampa Bay Lightning, their success, 3 straight years going to the Stanley Cup final, repeating as well. So this is 4 straight years having a team from Florida there. Like this is just great for the game overall, for it to continue to grow and just attract new fans. And that's my biggest personal thing with hockey. That's why I love talking about it. That's why I have a passion for it. That's why I want to work as close as I can with the sport, if I can, for my career, because the opportunity to grow this game and have it be for people what I want hockey to be considered for people one day, at least what people can look at the NBA playoffs, where you don't need to be a fan necessarily of a team right away to get it, and you just watch it. And that's why I always tell you and Dame every single year, and as many friends as possible, like playoff hockey, man, is a different animal. And a lot of people, myself included, it's the playoffs that bring in fans, and it's the playoffs that really intensify fandom. For me, it was the 2013 playoffs for the Blackhawks that turned me from like a good regular hockey fan that watched the games to the passionate person that I am now when it comes to the sport. And I think playoff runs like that can do it. For Vegas, this is the second time in the franchise's young history. What, 6 years they've existed? Second time they're making it to the Stanley Cup final. For Florida, this is the first time in the Stanley Cup final for the franchise since 1996. This is also the first time they've advanced past the first round since 1996, this playoff run. Oh, no, excuse me. Last year was the first time, but this is back-to-back years of decent playoff runs, and especially this year. This is amazing for the game. This is amazing for the fan bases, which you can build fan bases, you can get them interested, but you got to keep them, man. And I think Florida and Vegas have both shown to be pretty good fan bases overall. And it's just great, and I hope it just continues to grow the sport. And also, if you push past it, Chris, if you look at the Final Four, you had the Dallas Stars, who, yes, they've been around for a while and like they've won a Stanley Cup, but it's always nice to get Texas in there. And you had the Carolina Hurricanes, which have seen a little bit of a resurgence for that franchise over the last couple of years. Like it's just a good thing overall, man. And I'm very excited for it. Just growing hockey in general is what I wish would happen more. And unfortunately, there are some individuals that get in the way with that. Some of them may or may not work in the NHL directly. But at the end of the day, to have a cup final like this, for it to be on TNT, and that's this 2+ years ago, during the pandemic, during the fucking dark days of the pandemic, excuse my language, but the dark days of the pandemic, when the news eventually came out that ESPN and TNT both got the hockey rights of the NHL, I was ecstatic. And we're seeing it now. This cup final, I hope it does well, because last year's cup final did really good between the Avs and the Lightning. I hope this one does extremely good as well.
All right, so yeah, Stanley Cup here. I think you're right. I think ESPN getting the rights, this being and like the playoffs being on TNT. I think it's just pros for the whole sport just in general, man. But yeah, I'm excited that you're excited, because if you're excited, then that means we're gonna get a good matchup. Do you have any predictions on like who wins?
This series is so difficult for me, man. So I've been freaking batting this back and forth like a tennis ball all day, because you have the Vegas Golden Knights, Chris, and I like to consider them a jack of all trades and master of none. They were a very good team during the regular season. There weren't a lot of categories where they were top three, top five in per se, but they were top 10, and if not top 10, top 12 in nearly every major statistical category in the league during the regular season. This wasn't a team that had anything that necessarily overwhelmed you, but they had the talent, they had the skill, they had good penalty kill. I think really good penalty kill actually. Their defense was great. The play in net with all the injuries that they had going into the season, then during the season, has been phenomenal. They're on their basically third string goalie. At this point, like he was technically the second string during the regular season, but he eventually, the current goalie Aiden Hill, he got overtaken by Laurent Brossoit in the playoffs, and Brossoit got hurt, and then Aiden Hill just steps in and they freaking win the West. Like, Vegas is just a great team all around, well balanced, well coached. Bruce Cassidy, the former Boston Bruins coach who got unceremoniously fired in his home last season, so haha Boston. He is leading this team in his first season to the Stanley Cup Final, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then you have on the other side Florida. This is a team that, you know, they do have some pretty good talent, but it's just will, I think, is what's bringing this team. The Florida Panthers, for consistently in the last two rounds, got outshot in the games. The Maple Leafs and Hurricanes would usually get more shots on goal, but it was about the timely goal scoring. It was about really hunkering down and limiting the big weapons on the other teams. It was about their goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky standing on his goddamn head, and it's just phenomenal to say the least. This team, they get out, they're able to force a giveaway, and they can get in a 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 situation, Chris. It feels like they're going to score a goal nearly every time. This team is an ultimate opportunist at being able to get the puck and do something with it. It's absolutely phenomenal. So to the Florida Panthers and Vegas Golden Knights, these are two teams that hit their stride at the perfect time. Vegas with a dominating round one win, stifling the Oilers in round two, and dismantling the Stars for the most part. They were up 3-0. Stars won two in a row, but then they crushed Dallas in game six. They won 6-0. And then Florida with the upset over the President's Trophy, winning all-time record-setting Bruins, with the just demolition of Toronto's core in general. Like, there's thoughts that Toronto's core is going to get broken up this offseason. Their GM isn't there anymore. He just took a job today in Pittsburgh. So they basically broke up what it was the Maple Leafs to an extent. And the Carolina Hurricanes as well, sweeping them. Like, just talent, man. And grit and determination, skill and will and all that. So it it's so tough because I'm slowly going into the reality of the Florida Panthers might end up becoming the Stanley Cup champions. And we're about to live in a world where Sergei goddamn Bobrovsky is about to not only win the Stanley Cup, he could win the Conn Smythe, which for those of you that are not familiar with hockey, that's the playoff MVP. Um, Sergei Bobrovsky, two-time Vezina Trophy winner, part of two of the biggest playoff upsets in recent memory. Not only this season against the Boston Bruins with this Florida Panthers team coming back down 3-1, but he was also the goalie for when the Columbus Blue Jackets swept the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2019. And that Tampa Bay team also had 60 plus wins and was the best team we had seen in like a decade plus at that point. So this is a guy who's had an up and down career, inconsistent career to say the least, but he might backstop this team all the way. And what a time it is. There's so many different storylines to look at up here in the Stanley Cup Final with these two squads, and just if I had to pick a winner, man, I want Vegas to win. I want Vegas to win. And it's funny because they kind of have not become, they were the sweetheart their first season, but they're no longer the sweetheart in the NHL fan circles because they kind of got a little bit entitled. But I feel like they have really taken strides with that core. I think management has kind of slowed down what their role was the last couple seasons. They just have a really good team. And I want Vegas to win because I think for a lot of those guys, it would be vindication for them, especially Jack Eichel. At the same time, it's just hard to see a team beating the Florida Panthers right now. So if I sort of had to give a prediction, I would say Florida in 6, but I could definitely see Vegas winning this series in 6 or 7 as well. Like, I think this series is going to go one of two ways. Either this series finishes in like 7, or I know I just said 6, but bear with me, people. Either the series is going to go 7 or it ends in a sweep. I think it's one or the other. I don't see a way where this series somehow goes 5, and I'm hoping to give a little bit of a lucky jinx and get it in 6, but we'll see. I guess yeah. For now, I would pick the Florida Panthers to win, but just by literally the razor thinnest of margins, man. It's that close, and I know we can normally say this for most final. Some people are not saying it about a certain final in another sport right now, but at least for this Stanley Cup final, if you want to tell me Vegas is going to win this goddamn series, I have no reason to argue with you. I just don't.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. All right, let's transition to basketball because we have some stuff to talk about in that world, of course. Before we get to the NBA Finals, like we alluded to, we will be discussing some coaches being hired. Jurg, the Philadelphia Sixers hired Nick Nurse. The Milwaukee Bucks hired Adrian Griffin, and the Detroit Pistons hired Monty Williams. Let's go with the Bucks first because I want to talk about Monty Williams last. They hired Adrian Griffin, who I believe was an assistant. He was an assistant coach of the Toronto Raptors since 2018, I believe. I've always heard Adrian Griffin's name floating around like coaching hire rumors for a plethora of teams. He's always kind of in the running, but he never gets it. He does have ties to the Milwaukee Bucks because he was an assistant coach in 2008, from 2008 to 2010, and he's kind of floated around as an assistant coach since then. After the Bucks, he was an assistant for the Bulls, and then the Magic, and then OKC, and then the Raptors, and now he's finally a head coach to the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know how Adrian Griffin's going to do as a coach, but Giannis signed off on him, so they must have seen something in him. Obviously, I kind of do like the fact that the Bucks kind of didn't go with like a Nick Nurse or a Doc Rivers here. We talk about like the Raptors kind of hiring homegrown talent, in house type of like head coaching positions and all that. And we talked about we need new blood in like the head coaching circles, and that's what the Bucks did here. I kind of like the fact that they went for the lesser name because a lot of people probably thought Milwaukee Bucks ready to compete for a championship, have a generational talent in Giannis Antetokounmpo, probably going to be linked to a big name, but they want Adrian Griffin, and I kind of like this. I don't necessarily know what type of style he'll bring, but I do think if Giannis signs off on it, that's great. Again, Giannis is a humble dude. That could be one of his downfalls as well. But I think he's probably earned his dues. You're an assistant coach for I believe 15 years. You definitely earned your due. Like you've definitely paid your dues. Pressure might be a little on because the Bucks are ready to win now. But I'm interested to see what he does. I am interested to see what he does. I really like this partnership. I really do. I think the Bucks did a good job here as well because, funny enough, I do think while there is pressure for him to kind of, I guess, for the Bucks to win, and there's pressure on him because he is the head coach of a championship team. We've talked about like how the Bucks, there's an uncertainty with the Bucks that could be looming right in a few years.
Yep.
We don't know how the Bucks will look like in a few years, and I think if they go this route, if there's a route in which the Bucks go through this kind of rebuilding phase down the line, right? Why not keep Adrian Griffin, right? I think he kind of wins here because if you win, congratulations, you're a head coach of a winning basketball team. If they decide to rebuild and like there's a reason why the owner sold the Bucks and they decide to move on from veteran players and like there's a world where Giannis leaves, Adrian Griffin stays. I think why not? He leads the charge of a rebuilding team. So I think he gets the best of both worlds here actually. Because he's new blood and because he's like paid all of his dues as an assistant coach, why not? Why not have him spearhead a rebuilding of a team? So I like this for the Bucks. Again, like the fact that it's not a big name. Happy for him. 15 years is a long ass time. So he gets to coach one of the best players in the world as well. So win for him. What did you make of the Adrian Griffin signing?
Yeah, I'm with you. I was one of probably the main one on the show when we were talking about the coaches a couple weeks back of just pounding at the table of like I want new blood in here, and maybe it's part of that because I'm a jaded hockey fan and it's the same goddamn people over like a 20-year period of time. But that's just how it is. Like if we're being real with it, it's kind of the same case in basketball here for the most part, and I was happy that a new hire was made. I'll admit I didn't expect it to come from the Bucks. I was kind of along the lines of you and Dame. I thought it was going to be more of a veteran coach, a guy who's been there, done that. Not necessarily in terms of winning a championship, but just in terms of having that experience. So it is unique to go with a first time coach. But a couple things, like you said, 15 years in as an assistant coach, he's cut his teeth in both good and bad teams. Like he was there for Derrick Rose's MVP season. He was there, like you said, for the Bucks at the beginning of his assistant coaching career, where I'm pretty sure Michael Redd was probably on the team and maybe Brendan Jennings, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe my timeline's a little bit off, but he's worked with those guys. Orlando for a year, OKC for a small spell, which included Russell Westbrook, and now a long period of time with Toronto, winning a championship as an assistant coach, as a part of Nick Nurse's staff. Like in theory, this is one of those cases where it's always interesting when an unknown is hired, right? And to say what Adrian Griffin will or will not do, it's hard to say. We don't have a full breakdown of assistant coaches in the NBA like we do the NFL, right? Like we know offensive coordinator, okay, this is what you ran a lot, your scheme, etc. This is what you work with the coach with. Defensive coordinator, kind of a similar thing. Even to an extent, maybe with like DB coaches and stuff, like when they get promoted to DCs. With the NBA, it's a little bit harder to tell how much did an assistant coach do for a coaching staff, right? But for Adrian Griffin being there for a long time, being a backbone, again, he was part of that championship team. He was part of a team that beat the Bucks in the playoffs, actually, including with 4 straight wins to win the East years back. I think this is a solid hire. Like, it's a wait and see situation, but I'm with you. Like, if things don't pan out over the next 2 to 3 years with the team and the core and what could happen, you could keep Griffin there for a rebuild for the long haul because this is just his first opportunity. This is not a veteran curmudgeon of a coach that's going to alienate young players in 2 3 years if your core doesn't win another ring. This is a guy that could stay there for the long haul. So he's mainly been around good situations as an assistant coach, but I'm sure he'd be more than willing to stay for a rebuild. So that's ultimately how I see it. What is he going to do? How is he going to contribute overall for the most part? Wait and see type deal. But I think if you're a Bucks fan, I think you should just be happy. The one thing he just needs to do a little bit better than his predecessor, you just got to be able to game plan, man. And
Yeah.
game plan in between series, make adjustments, and do the right things in games. That's what you got to do. And I will be interested to see if Griffin is a little bit challenging to Giannis.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing with Giannis is, as much as we say he's humble and stuff, has Giannis had a head coach that has challenged him? Like, I really, really wonder that. And if Adrian Griffin can maybe be the guy to unlock that extra step in Giannis, and yes, I know Giannis, we spoke about it on the show. We don't necessarily blame him for the for the loss in the first round this year or last year, but there needs to be, players have talked about great coaches helping make them even greater when they thought that they were already really good. Is Adrian Griffin maybe that guy? Who knows? Like, we can't say he won't be, but we can't say he will be, but we can't say he won't be. So this is the thing. Of the three coaches that we're going to briefly speak about here, he's the biggest X factor.
Hmm. And I think if, Griffin, decides to coach Giannis a little harder than Giannis has experienced in the past, I think Giannis is the type to handle it. I think he'll handle it well because I think Giannis, again, like he's humble. So, like, he's willing. Giannis isn't a diva. He'll accept, tough coaching. So I can definitely see that working out. Definitely. All right, let's move on over to Nick Nurse being hired as the head coach for the Philadelphia Sixers. Jurg, gotta say, I feel like I knew the Sixers would go for the bigger name here. I had a feeling they'd go for one of the more established names, for lack of a better term. So they go for Nick Nurse. I think Nick Nurse is a very good coach. I do think. I mean, look, the bar wasn't that high, but like he's a better coach than Doc Rivers. So championship coach, of course. So the thing is, I don't necessarily know how he'll mesh with Embiid. I really don't. I think the Sixers, now granted Doc Rivers was a major problem, but like there's a bunch of things that they need to do in order to get over the hump. There might be a roster rehaul excluding Embiid this offseason because we've already kind of talked about the James Harden rumors. But I don't know, man. He's a very rigid coach, Nick Nurse, right? I feel like him and Tom Thibodeau are kind of within that same type of coaching style, and he is known to play his star players heavy minutes. How will that take a toll on Embiid's body? I don't know. I'm not bullish on that. I'm very skeptical on that. Like, how does he handle Embiid minutes? Will it be too much for Embiid to handle? I don't necessarily like this partnership, right? But I don't know, because do you think there's a little bit more pressure? There was a little bit more pressure for the Sixers to kind of go after the more established name as opposed to the Bucks because they haven't necessarily gone over the hump. I feel like there's a little bit of leeway for the Bucks because they've won the championship, right?
Right.
The Sixers, I think there's a little bit of pressure to get that coach, that big name coach, because they need to win, right? At least get to the conference finals or something. Do you feel that a little bit?
I agree with you. I'm 100% there. I don't think Embiid and Harden, especially like those two personalities, I don't think they respond to a first time head coach. I think you had to get a
Right.
veteran there. I think a first time head coach, or even not necessarily a first time coach, but a guy that's not used to, like, look, I'm all for Kenny Atkinson getting a second shot here, but I think Kenny Atkinson, I would have been done dirty in Philly like he got done dirty in Brooklyn because you got those two guys there that one is just not serious enough about winning and the other one is Joel Embiid. So it's ultimately, it's got to be the right guy there. And I'm kind of with you. I understand he's rigid. I understand like maybe the way he ran the offense in Toronto and his play style with his stars. And maybe hopefully he'll learn from that and take it into this next opportunity as a chance to do some things differently. I think he might kind of have to considering who he has there. But I think a coach like Nick Nurse was the only kind of coach that was going to work. I don't think a coach that didn't have experience or hasn't dealt with stars. I think that was another thing, Chris. Along with experience, I don't think a coach, again, an experienced one, but didn't necessarily deal with stars on a high level would have been great. Because ultimately speaking, Nick Nurse and Kawhi, like I know Kawhi's a quiet dude, but I don't hear anyone in the Raptors organization saying Nick Nurse lost them Kawhi. Kawhi was leaving no matter what, goddammit. But like, I don't hear anyone saying that Nick Nurse alienates star players. And so I think it's a combo of getting a guy like that who knows how to deal with star players, but can be tough on them. And I think Nick Nurse could be the guy to get you that balance.
For sure. I think it's gonna be on Embiid too. A majority of it's gonna be on Embiid, man. It's just
Oh,
Nick
100%.
Nurse is a serious coach for sure, but like you're gonna be coaching an unserious player. I'm gonna be straight up. Like
Well, two of
Embiid.
them potentially.
Well, yeah, I really think Harden's gone. I don't know. Mike D'Antoni or Sam Cassell, I feel like would have been right there though. I don't know. The Mike D'Antoni thing's a little weird. But then again, I feel like if they hired him, that would have been confirmation that James Harden stays. But I don't know. I don't know. Daryl Morey, I think he has. I kind of like the fact that they're not letting the inmates run the asylum here. So there's a plus to that. I can't give you some Philly predictions. Talk to me after the summer because again, this might be a completely different roster. Besides Embiid, I could see a lot of changes occurring. All right, let's move on over to the Detroit Pistons hiring Monty Williams, which we said may happen. We have called it.
Yeah,
Now
this podcast knows what it's talking about.
it does. It does. But I am not a numbers guy, Jurg. I finished math in college and that was it. I only needed one math course to pass, and I never looked back.
Yeah, right.
So I heard rumors that they offered him the job, but he didn't want it. Monty
Mhm.
Williams. And then, of course, I think that was like a week ago. Then yesterday happens. Last night, Monty Williams agrees to be the Pistons coach for 6 years. What was it? 72 million.
Yep. He got played role player money.
Oh my god, 6 years, 72 million. I believe there's also a thing with his contract. It's like 8 years, 100 million based on like incentives or something like that.
Probably.
That is crazy, bro. Okay, forget the eight. All right, I don't know if the numbers are correct in terms of like if he hits all the incentives because I believe a part of that would be like, can you get them to the playoffs? Is there a certain amount of wins that you surpass? I
Yeah.
think he gets like some extra money on that end. So let's just talk about the 6 years, 72 million, just because like those are the confirmed numbers here. Good Lord Almighty, bro. From a coaching aspect here, I actually like the fit. We talked about this. I think Monty Williams is perfect for that team. This is a team, obviously, that does not know winning.
78.5 million, actually, by the way, is his contract.
78 and a half?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's making over 13 million a year, easily the highest paid coach in the league now.
So here's the thing. The Detroit Pistons don't know winning.
Very true.
Monty Williams does know winning, especially over the last couple of years. I think this is a good first move to kind of change the culture in Detroit, right? I like their young core. You have your main young guy in Cade Cunningham. You have Jaden Ivey. You have Jalen Duran. I think you have a decent young core there. And they're going to get the fifth pick. Who knows now? They might trade it or something. But Monty Williams is a player's coach. He is a big reason as to why the Phoenix Suns turn it around. So I believe, like, they've been losing for a while now, but they've been, like, dead last in the NBA for the past 3 seasons. I know when they got Jaden Ivey, they weren't last, but, like, they were one of the worst teams in the NBA. But now it's kind of like, I talked about this. After 3 seasons of, like, pure losing, you kind of need to make some changes here. And I know they didn't get the first pick, but again, you did get Cade Cunningham a few years ago. That's good enough for me. And I actually believe in the talent for Cade Cunningham. I'm bullish on him. I know like everything's kind of been derailed by injuries, but I actually do believe in the talent, and I believe he has a high ceiling. So this is a good first step for them. I think he's a perfect players coach. You know, I think the pressure is going to be off for the first couple years for him, right? I think with the Phoenix Suns, I think he was kind of under a microscope once Kevin Durant came in. But again, there's always red flags with Kevin Durant and other coaches. So I mean, just like you can't really once teams become overwhelmed with just star power, coaching takes a back seat, and then when the failures occur, it's on the coaches, right, as opposed to the players. And I don't know. I feel like he got dealt a bad hand towards the end there in Phoenix, but I really like Monty Williams. Again, it's a no pressure situation. I think it's win-win here because you have some decent young players that you could kind of like you could mold and shape. You kind of have the experience of I guess coaching because when he took the Phoenix Suns job, Uh, they still had young talent, right? I think this was before. Was it before Chris Paul came?
Yeah, so what it was that his first season there coincided with the season that was cut short due to
Right,
COVID,
right, right, right,
and
right,
they won the 8 straight in the bubble.
right. So he's coached the Suns when they had Devin Booker, Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson as the nucleus. This is before Chris Paul came.
Yep.
So
He
I
coached
think
Anthony Davis in New Orleans
there
in
you
at the
go.
beginning of AD's
Exactly.
career.
So he has like he has coached like young talents before. Now you kind of do it in Detroit where the attention's not there. You have some young talent. I think it's a good situation for him. Let's talk about the financials now because this is where everything. You're gonna take 6 years, 70. What was it? 78 million.
78 and a half.
Come on, bro. This is a no-brainer. Don't even finish the sentence. I'm signing my name on the dotted line. Obviously, he's taking that job. Obviously. I like Monty Williams, but Jesus Christ, I feel you could have gone another decent coach for a lot less money here, bro, because this is the type of hiring that like you make with that type of money. Are the Pistons gonna become contenders in like 3 years? I don't think so personally.
Monty Williams, player coach. Who would have
As well,
thought?
like I don't know they must have seen something, bro. I get it. Monty Williams is a good coach, but 6 years, 78 million.
Chris, if there's one thing I've learned from sports in general, and it's both with players, coaches, hell, even executives, if you have your eyes set on the guy and you want him, you just throw whatever it's got to be. You tell him, like you said, if they got initially declined, I promise you they went back to him and they probably asked him, how much do you want? Like, I feel like that there had to have been some of that discourse. And if Monty Williams said, I want to be one of the highest paid coaches in the league, they were like, how about making you the highest paid? And he's like, yeah, I'll live in Detroit
I
for
mean,
6, 7 months of the year for that.
I just
He could probably buy half of Detroit with his goddamn contract at this point.
dead ass. Yeah, I just wow, just wow. I don't want to say what are they thinking because I do think it's a good hiring for them.
Yeah.
I'm, j- but Lord Jesus,
They're
bro.
they're banking on a lot. They're banking on him to really help I think the developmental curve of Cade and Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren and the young core they have. But B, I also think what they're trying to do, and I've kind of spoken about this in the past, where it's like you only get so much with having so many young guys. And I think what they want with Monty Williams is a guy who will bring structure to the team in terms of figuring out who is there for the long-term future. I think Duran, I think Ivy, and I think Cade are definitive locks. What's going to happen with Killian Hayes? He just had the first decent season of his career, but he's a former top 10 pick. I think he might be an RFA if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Uh, so there's him. You have Marvin Bagley, who you traded for randomly,
kind of
about
had a
two
resurgence with
seasons
them a
ago.
little
A
bit,
mini resurgence, but got hurt a lot last season. I think
and
he
they
missed
have Wiseman.
half the year, and now they have James Wiseman, who had, for all intents and purposes, he put up decent numbers. I don't know if it's an empty calorie situation with the stats he put up, but ultimately speaking, you have a good chunk of young pieces on the squad, and I think Monty is there to kind of help sift through and see, okay, who's going to deserve their time in the rotation and who's not, and then eventually, like, because we talk about Monty now, and I was kind of going to bring up this point with the Bucks with Griffin. It's on the GM now to build the goddamn team.
Yeah,
Like, it's on them now to get the free agents to get in the room. And now I think maybe part of it is, I think role players, because you talk about getting veterans there, I think a veteran role player or maybe a pretty good starter will consider the Pistons a little bit more now if Monty Williams is at
yeah,
the head of it
yeah,
now. And Monty Williams, I think, is proven, even though things didn't end necessarily quote unquote great in Phoenix, like he's still a guy that players respect. He's still a guy that's worked with a lot of superstar players: Chris Paul, Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, uh, Kevin Durant. This is a guy who's worked with some amazing guys, and overall, I think a lot of people are going to be willing to play for him. Now, will some guys not be willing to play for him? Jay Crowder, DeAndre Ayton, but ultimately, you have a guy who I think will help get these guys to the next level. And I think you have a guy who makes you a bit more attractive now. Because at the end of the day, if you're Detroit, you need to do perception wise as a franchise, you need to do what you can to switch things. You mentioned the culture, Chris. I think the culture and the image is what Monty Williams was brought there for. And maybe that had to be part of the reason of like, hey, we gotta pay him extra. I'm amazed that with a coach being paid that much that he doesn't have. I mean, I'm sure he'll have him in the meetings, but like, in terms of coaches and also being like VP of basketball ops and stuff like that. Like, I'm shocked there wasn't anything else in the role, but
right.
I guess I think Monty Williams is just like a straight up coach. Like, I don't think he wants the extra responsibility in the role. I think he's like, yeah, let the GM handle that. So I think that's ultimately what Detroit bought here with the deal. They bought a culture reset, like an actual culture reset this time, a culture reset, an image reset, a little bit more cachet when it comes to the negotiating tables with free agents. I think that's what Detroit bought here. Is it expensive? Yes, but goddamn, prices ain't cheap in these goddamn leagues.
For sure, you're right. But also like I don't blame him for not taking the if there was a little GM type of slash coach thing, that never works out. That never works out.
Yeah. The Pistons also like I only brought that up because the idea of that salary, like if this
Yeah,
was like any other league, like I would think that the guy has like a little bit
yeah.
extra.
So I think you're right because yeah, it's a lot of money, right? You're right though. I think he's a player's coach. I think players would want to play for him. But you're right in terms of just like the developmental curve. No, Detroit is not an appealing place to play for like stars, right? So I view this and I view them overpaying for Monty Williams as like look, stars don't want to come here, right? We need to accentuate the strengths that we have now, right? Are we a desired destination? No. But we have young talent. It's kind of like OKC. Like they hoard on picks because they know, no one's gonna want to come here. You have to bank on the infrastructure. Kind of you have to build the interior because the exterior isn't necessarily appealing, right? So I for sure hear you. I talk about this with my dad a lot. It's just like you have to overpay for certain things because of like the geography and just the location that you're in. It sucks, but that's how life is. That's how sports is. No one's gonna want to come here, so you know what? Screw it. Let's overpay for a coach who's a player's coach. That might help bring some eyes in the future, right? If someone's a free agent, they're just like, you know what? They're building something there in Motown. They could offer me a shit ton of money. They have Monty Williams. Why not? Right? I could play with Cade Cunningham, who over the next few years has developed. I could play with Jaden Ivey, right? James Wiseman has turned to a stud. You kind of have to like just build upon what you have. And luckily for like in terms of like coaching, you know, the metrics don't play the same as like a star coming there, right? If someone's offering me 60 or 78 million as a coach, I'm coming there, right? I'll be there. We will be there. We will be there. So it's like that. It sucks because this is what small market teams have to deal with, but there is a way for you to kind of finesse the system, and it's not necessarily finessing. It's the way shit is. So, you know what? I do agree with you. I do agree with you that it's just like you have to build the infrastructure and it's just like control what we can control, what you can control. We can control having a nice coach. We can control having some decent young talent that we drafted, and then we could re-sign them because the next CBA is going to come,
Yeah.
and it's going to be difficult for us to lose these players for them to sign when like their rookie max extension is up. So yeah, control the controllable, and I think for like the Pistons, small market teams, you have to overpay for other certain stuff that doesn't include star players. So I'm with you.
And again, this is an upgrade overall. Like all
Oh,
due
for
respect to
sure.
Dwayne Casey, all due respect. Like I understand, like we all feel bad for him that he won Coach of the Year and then got fired by the Raptors because they got swept by LeBronto. Um, in the same vein, I don't think Dwayne Casey was the right coach for the team in terms of taking them to
Stopgap coach.
a great level. Yeah, he's a stop. I think Dwayne Casey was a great stopgap coach for this young team to get these guys into the NBA and get their feet
Yes.
wet. Dwayne Casey is a coach for a veteran team, not a young team.
For sure, for sure. But yeah, this is a plus for Detroit. Ultimately, it's not. It's at the end of the day, they overpaid for a coach and not a player, right? It doesn't hinder their growth, right? I don't know the financials of it. It was just like, I mean, the owner really throwing the bank book at this, but I don't
Yeah.
think he gives a fuck.
Well, yeah, new arena from a couple years ago
That is
from
true.
like Little Caesars, and it's like they you make this investment, the new basketball arena, the new look of the team from years back. I know it was years ago, but like just it's a process. It doesn't happen like over 2-3 years, but arena team branding,
They need a
trying to get
rehaul, bro. The Pistons,
guys in there.
dude, they need a rehaul because their logo sucks. Like
Yeah,
they need everything, bro. Like bring back the old Detroit Pistons logo or something. It just you're right from an imaging standpoint. Like they lack appeal. They lack
yeah.
appeal. Like forget Detroit just in general. Forget Detroit, Michigan. But just like it's you need something new. You need something fresh. This is a good first step. This is for sure a good first step. But there's a bunch of like other stuff that they kind of need to work on. And I think the pieces are there for sure. But yeah, I don't have not much else to say about it. Do you?
No, not really. I'm actually kind of with you now that you brought it up. I hope they rebrand. I hope they
Please
like
do.
just like full restoration because like in the NFL, I know there's like like teams can't like switch their jerseys and uniforms and stuff for like 4 or 5 years after they do it. So like I don't know what it would be in the other sports. I assume maybe it's a similar thing. It's been a while, Detroit. Like let's fix things. Let's get the color palette back in there and make that logo look a little bit better.
Please, bro. I'll do it. I'll do it for cheap.
Yeah.
Okay.
This podcast is also available to be the official podcast of the Pistons, by the way.
That
Just
is
saying.
true. I'll suck off the Pistons easy if you want me to. They've never done me wrong. I like Cade Cunningham. Why not?
Very true.
Okay. All right, and that brings us to NBA Finals preview. But before that, Jurg, I know you requested some time to let a little bit of a rant.
Yes.
For you to go off.
Yes.
For you to go off on a rant. So, Jurg, the Miami Heat defeated the Boston Celtics in 7 games, 4-3. Heat were up 3-0. Celtics came back 3-3. And then Heat won Game 7. Destroyed the Celtics in Game 7 in Boston, by the way.
Yep.
So, Jurg, the floor is yours. Before that, before you go on the rant, I do want to ask you, was there a part of you that was a little concerned? Was there? And
The
yeah, that's
day,
base. Go ahead.
yeah. So the day of Game 7, no.
Okay.
Immediately after the Game 6 Derek White shot,
Yeah.
which I still
I can't
like,
believe that shit
Eric
happened.
Eric Spoelstra is an amazing coach, and he's a better man than me because I would have been so pissed off at Max Strus. Not to the media, but just internally, be like, Strus, what the? But immediately after the Game 6 shot, I was inconsolable. It doesn't help when one of your closest friends is an annoying Celtics fan.
Who?
A friend of mine, JJ.
Okay.
He love him, by the way. Like JJ's my guy. I say annoying like he's my guy, but he was texting me all series. Like he kept texting me the whole thing of don't let us get one, don't let us get two, all that stuff. Celtics in 7 and all that he was saying. Right after Game 6, I was inconsolable. I gave it a day. I worked. I worked out the next day. Day of Game 7, I'm like, you know what? I believe. I don't know how the hell we're gonna do it, but I believe we're gonna go into Boston and win Game 7, and we did that. Jimmy played great. Bam, offensively, really got me mad, but defensively, he was doing his thing. Strus and the guys came to shoot and play, all that stuff.
Caleb Martin, man, Jesus.
He arguably could have been the Eastern Conference Finals MVP.
Yeah. Do you think they'll ever give it to like a role player?
Never,
Okay.
never. Because last year, Kevon Looney could have won it because he honestly, his rebounding alone helped helped Golden State beat Dallas last year.
Yeah.
And then this season, Caleb Martin with his his true shooting percentage was like 70%. Like what the hell? If Kevon Looney in last year's conference finals and Caleb Martin in this year's conference finals can't get it, no one's gonna get it. Like I'm convinced. Unless a 6-man averages like 25 a game, it ain't happening.
This is bad optics for the NBA.
Which is so stupid. Like
yeah,
I said it after Jimmy got the award. And I'm not saying Jimmy didn't deserve it, but I'm convinced they made this award just to give like star players an extra.
Right. Yeah.
It's so because it's weird. Only baseball does this with the AL and NLCS MVPs. They're the only other sport that does this. Hockey doesn't give a damn. We don't even have a cup final trophy. We just have the consummate for the whole playoffs. Like it's anyway. I'm going off track. Celtics. I want to say this to the Celtics fans, as annoying as you guys may have been at times. Your team played better in games 4 and 5, and you guys nearly choked it away in game 6. But Celtics fans were not my problem in the series. Actually, overall on my timeline. I want to give a special shout out to you schmucks, you jamokes that are 76ers and Knicks fans. Because good Lord in heaven.
Not including me and Dame.
Not including you two. Actually, Dame, not to a defense, but like he even retweeted Knicks Muse or whatever those fucking schmucks are on Twitter. Some sarcastic post that they posted after the Heat Game 6 loss, which by the way, they deleted. They deleted their tweet. Say it with your chest if you're going to talk trash. Say it with your chest if you're going to try to dunk on a team that beat you in the previous round. Say it with your chest, Philadelphia, that you're still petty that Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat have done better than you. They've made it to the finals more times than you guys have won playoff series. Okay, I might be a little bit off on that, but still it feels like it. Like, overall, I'm all for trash talk. I'm all for fun and games. I'm all for memes. Would the Heat have been memed forever? Absolutely. And I would have hated it. But we also would have blown it and deserved it. But before the job got finished, Knicks fans, Knicks Muse, 76ers fans. I have no idea if there's a 76ers
Sixers
Muse.
Muse.
I have no idea if they have one. I don't
I
care
feel like
enough to
every team
search
has a
for it.
Muse.
Probably, which, God, get original, people. But everyone that was dunking on the Heat and saying ding dong, we're dead and all that crap and making little jokes and people like, oh, I hope the Celtics destroy them game 7, this, that, and the third. Just double middle finger salute to the both of you. One for each conference finals we've won over the last 4 goddamn years. One for the fact that this is what actual franchises do. Because like I said, I don't have a problem with the Boston Celtics fans. I don't have a problem with the Milwaukee Bucks fans. Milwaukee is probably the nicest set of fans there is in the NBA, arguably. And the Bucks in general. The Bucks, the Heat, and the Celtics have been the franchises in this conference for the last 4 years. And this is what the big boys do. The big boys go out, battle it against each other, and win playoff series and win and make it to the finals. And in the Bucks case, win a championship. That's what the big boys do. So if there's ever any reason why people think, oh, NBA Twitter and NBA media and this, that, and the third are too hard on Knicks fans and 76ers fans, do you want to know why? Because in a series that has nothing to do with either of you, in a series where, ironically, the two teams that are there beat both of you in the playoffs, you had the audacity, the gall, to act like your team was the one doing something in this series? Get out of here. You utter goddamn losers who couldn't hold the 3-2 lead in game 6 at home. You losers who block the MTA and block all of 7th Ave or 7th Street or whatever the hell it was. We have too many goddamn 7s in New York. Who blocked an entire city block or two after a playoff series win. Who, after a
Playoff
regular
game win.
season, oh my God, that's even worse. I thought it was after the series, a playoff game win. They did that. The same group of Knicks fans who, after beating the Celtics in overtime in a regular season game, absolutely lost it and went viral. You losers, you jamokes, this is why first-class organizations and first-class teams, this is why we are successful. It's because I don't celebrate after the first round. I don't celebrate after the second round. I'm happy we won the conference again, but I want more. And you jamokes get yourself in the business of teams that are above you. Get out of here. So this is to the specific group of fans that I saw saying my team was dead after game 6. Ha, ha, ha. You want to post your funny little tweets and then take them down? No. Say it with your chest. Do something. Oh, wait, you can't. You lost in the playoffs. Losers. Anyway, that's my rant. Utter goddamn jokes. Franchises that we've made more NBA finals than you guys have made playoffs over the last 15 years, and you people want to talk. Get out of here.
I gotta say, I don't mind, Knicks fans just going off after one playoff win. We've been devoid of such success in the playoffs. You guys do. It's just that's more New Yorkers. I feel like it's more New York.
You can do that, but stay out of the business when the big boys are in the conference finals.
That's fine.
I'm just like Knicks Muse saying anything about this series. Like focus on RJ Barrett. Focus on trying to trade Julius Randle, boy. Like stay out of our business when it comes to where the actual big boys play. Where my team has been to 7 times since 2006. Get out of here.
Well, what a rant. That leads us to the NBA Finals, where we don't have the Lakers versus the Celtics, thank God. Mm-hmm. We have the Denver Nuggets versus the Miami Heat. Jurg, this is a finals that I feel like the NBA probably didn't want as their finals from a rating standpoint. But I think that ratings thing is such bullshit, bro. Just give me the 2 best teams, Yep. Again, we talked about this. Jimmy Butler and Nikola Jokic are the 2 best players in the NBA playoffs. And they're going to go head to head. Like, I'd rather watch that. I want to see good basketball, and these are 2 good basketball teams. I don't care if it's Lakers, this whole Boston versus LA rivalry. I don't give a fuck, man. Like, it's tired of seeing the same shit. I want to see something new for once. And the Nuggets versus the Miami Heat is a new matchup. And you know what? I am excited because it's the NBA Finals, but let's get into the preview here. The Denver Nuggets obviously have home court advantage, obviously. Miami Heat playing team. What was the last time an 8th seed made the NBA Finals? Was it the Knicks in 99?
Yeah, I think you guys are the only one, I think.
Really?
Before us, yeah.
Well, all right. So, again, Jimmy Butler versus Nikola Jokic. This is, I think, I didn't ask Dane for his predictions, by the way. I think he thinks the Denver Nuggets will win. I believe he wants the Miami Heat to win because I think he wants Jimmy Butler to win a ring because he's a big Jimmy Butler fan. But let's talk about this, Jurg. I think I'm excited for this series from a basketball standpoint, just because these are the two best teams, the two team oriented, the two most team oriented teams clashing against each other. I I do actually want to talk about this after we kind of give our predictions. So I'm gonna give my prediction here.
Yep.
I think the Denver Nuggets win this series. I think the Nuggets will be the NBA champions. I have them winning in six. Would not be surprised, and this is all due respect, of course, if they win in a gentleman's sweep. I do think this is the best team that the Miami Heat will face. I think it's hard to count out the Miami Heat because they made it this far, and I've been counting them out for every series besides the Knicks one.
Which
I
is really
really,
odd.
yeah, I exactly. Um, but I think the Nuggets are the best team that they play against. And I think the Nuggets, out of all the teams they have that the Miami Heat have played against, are the most disciplined team. I think Jokic obviously is the best player they're going to have to deal with. I think the coaching gap between Spoelstra and Missoula obviously was exponential. I think Spoelstra is a better coach than Mike Malone, but the gap isn't going to be as big as it was between Spoelstra and Missoula. So I do think we're going to have a good coaching battle. I'll give that the coaching advantage goes to Miami Heat, but I do think just the talent here is going to be a little bit overwhelming because I do think Nikola Jokic is the Nuggets play as a team, man, and I think Jokic accentuates the strengths of every player there. I think they're way more rested than Miami Heat. I think worst case scenario was that the Miami Heat went the distance with the Celtics. I think I said that before we made our predictions for the Eastern Conference Finals. It won't be good for the Miami Heat if they go the distance. They did win against the Celtics, but now they're going to Denver where that altitude is, effective. And the Nuggets like to run, bro. They love to run. Nuggets are way more disciplined than the Celtics. I have the Nuggets winning here. I think Jokic is going to be a little bit too much for Bam. I think it's going to be important for Murray to kind of step up. If there was a series where the Caleb Martins and the Max Struses of the world need to step up, it's this one. I know it's the NBA Finals. Obviously, you need everyone to step up, but you need them to maintain the momentum that they have because you can't take breaks off in possessions against the Denver Nuggets. You need to be alert at all times because Jokic will find slashers, he'll find open shooters. It's going to be tough, man. This is going to be for the Miami Heat. You need to be locked in every possession of the game. I think the depth here will, advantage goes to the Denver Nuggets. I think it's just going to be a little bit too much because you have to deal with Jokic, but now you have to but then again, you have to deal with Murray. You're going to have to deal with Michael Porter Jr. In my opinion, the X factor here is that you're going to have to deal with KCP to a certain extent because he's been in this position before. So I think the depth here will go to the Denver Nuggets. I think the star power here is going to go to the Denver Nuggets. I think Jokic is going to be a little bit too much to handle. I will say though, the Miami Heat are going to need that veteran presence from Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love. And I think it's very helpful for them that they have those two because those two, I mean, this is Kevin Love's like fourth finals
Fifth,
appearance?
yeah.
Fifth? Yeah. And, Kyle Lowry there as well. I expect Kyle Lowry to have a decent series this series. I don't know why. I just think the fact that he's been here before and the fact that I trust him to be in the rotation more so than Kevin Love because I think, the Nuggets are going to be too much for Kevin Love to handle defensively, especially for Kevin Love to handle. So I think they're going to need a big series from Kyle Lowry here. I really do. But staying in front of Jamal Murray, if he catches fire, is going to be it's gonna hurt a lot for them. So I just think Jokic is going to be too much. Jimmy's going to have a Superman performance, bro. He's carried them to this point. But I do think the Nuggets are the best team that they're going to face. The Nuggets have been the best team these playoffs, in my opinion. Again, I can't count out the Heat fully. I just don't. I think this is where it stops here. I think the Cinderella run. It is a Cinderella run essentially, but I think it stops here. I do think it stops here. Unfortunately, I wouldn't mind if Jimmy Butler got a ring, but I just think the Nuggets are going to be too much for them. They're going to be way too much for them. And Jurg, I gotta say, for both teams, and I want you to answer this as well.
Yeah.
There, for me, Jokic has the most to gain from the Nuggets and for a ring, right?
Mhm.
I think that puts him in a very rare stratosphere. One of the best players in the NBA. I think it will definitely distance the best center in the league debate that we have. In my opinion, it's already been a distance, but other people apparently have Embiid better than him. I don't know why.
I was gonna say, do you want it to become a, like, planetary difference instead of just like a slight
But
difference?
it has to be planetary difference because that's what will get people to finally shut up.
Fair enough.
I think Embiid a ring for Jokic puts him. I think that he is on his way to becoming at least getting to the top 30 all time. At least when it's all said and done, I think a championship here. I think he surpasses a lot of players, bro. I really do. For Jamal Murray, what a comeback story that is for him. I think it's gonna be tough for him to get an All NBA teams. He is a very talented point guard, but I think winning a championship here, it's just it's hard for him to get an All NBA teams and an NBA All Star games. I think the NBA All Star games he has a chance more so, but if you're not getting those other accolades here, you might as well get some championships. Rack up as many championships as you can. For Michael Porter Jr., I've always been skeptical of him. Very talented young player, but you win a championship here. That unseriousness that's labeled of Michael Porter Jr. from skeptics like me, the fact that he's willing to defer and he's just like, you know what, coach, if you want to put Bruce Brown at the end of games as opposed to me for defensive purposes, go ahead. That shows growth for me. And of course, for the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, Hall of Fame career, automatically, no dispute if you get that ring. This would be pretty sick though for Kevin Love and Kyle Lowry because if the Miami Heat win this series, I think there's more to gain for some of the players on the Miami Heat side actually.
Yeah.
Because Kyle and Kevin get 2 rings.
Yep.
Dude, getting 2 rings is come on, I think,
It
that's a
it
feat in itself,
it
bro.
might solidify their Hall of Fame cases because
Absolutely.
I'm gonna be real
A-
with you. I don't have Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love in my Hall of Fame right
Me
now.
neither. Me
And I
neither.
and I think a second championship. It doesn't matter if you're a role player. It does not matter if you contributed to a championship
Yep. Yep.
and you had the career that these two had before that championship. It puts you in consideration.
For sure.
A second ring on both of their resumes will get both of them in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it says a lot more for Kyle Lowry as well,
Yeah. From the worst postseason performer of our generation to
to
a
2
two-time
rings,
champion.
right? And I'm telling you that second ring does so much for certain players. Like look, Rondo and Ray Allen,
Yep.
two-time NBA champs right there. And it's just like it's something. It's just I know one championship makes men, right? But two solidifies men, right?
Yep.
And it says a lot for these undrafted players, or rather players that are overlooked for the Miami Heat. They get their first ring, and it's just like, look at this. No one gave a shit, and now we're on top of the world.
Yep. It'll
But
get
I
guys
think,
paid, by the way. Like,
oh, absolutely,
if Gabe Vincent walks into free agency this year with a ring, he might make even more than what I'm thinking.
oh, absolutely,
And
absolutely,
Caleb Martin, he's still under the Heat for one more year, but if he walks into next offseason with a championship, he's getting 80, 90, $100 million.
possibly for sure. And I think Eric Spoelstra finally gets his ring in post LeBron world. Finally, Pat Riley, the devil that he is just like, look what I can do. I'm worlds ahead of everyone. And the thing is, for Jimmy, I fear if the Heat lose this series, I just don't know how many more finals appearances we can get for Jimmy because he is getting older, and I just feel like the opportunity is right here, man. And it's going to be tough for him to kind of get to this point because he is getting older. I'm never going to count out the Heat, so maybe like I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot with that statement, but you just never know. You just never know. Because the NBA is such an ever-changing place, but I feel like because Jokic and Murray are in the prime of their careers, so to say, like I feel like I'll see them again. But like I don't know how many more Jimmy Butler. Well, but again, he plans to retire as a Miami Heat. He said he's like I'm not like there's not gonna be another jersey I'm gonna wear after I'm done with the Miami Heat. But obviously you're the Miami Heat fan, so this is gonna be a finals for you. You're very emotionally invested into this finals matchup, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I've ranted enough, Jurg. What do you make of this series? All that shit I said. Your response.
So how dare you pick against my team again?
I'm
But you know
sorry.
what? We're 2-0 so far when you pick against us, Chris. So I'm perfectly fine with it. You're trying to help us here, and I understand that. I actually do appreciate that. Um, so let me start with my prediction. And I wish I could give two different predictions because I feel like if I pick against my team and we win, people are gonna be like, "You didn't really believe in your team," but I'm like, "Yes, I did. I just had to on the show do it." But you know what? I'm sticking with my team. Heat in 6. We're going to be the 2023 NBA champions.
6. Okay.
Yes, Heat in 6. Um, People can say I'm delusional all you want. I'm saying if my team loses, I stuck with my team. If I pick against my team and my team wins, you people are going to say I gave up on my team. I'm not letting that happen. So I'm riding with my boys. Heat in 6. All right. The analysis of the series. You said a lot of valid points here. I think there are two different X factors in this series, and it basically involves everyone that are not the stars and not the head coaches. Because I'm with you. I think Michael Malone is a very underrated coach. I think he's like a top 6, 7 coach in the league, maybe top 5. You could argue. And I think he is a great guy to go with a chess match against Eric Spoelstra. This is going to be Eric Spoelstra's toughest head coaching competition yet in these goddamn playoffs. He's
Yeah.
had Budenholzer, Thibodeau, and Joe Mazzulla, and now he finally gets a real opponent on the opposite sideline. Finally, so it's going to be Malone versus Spoelstra there, and Jimmy versus Jokic. You could say what you want about Jimmy, and he was a bit inconsistent in the Celtics series, especially if he would just stop pump ficking the ball every single time. And going up against Jokic, Jokic is just a beast, etc. But I think the two X factors in the series are in two different spots. Number one, the second stars on each team, and number two, the role players. The Miami Heat. Let me go to point two actually really fast. So the Miami Heat are averaging more bench points per game in the postseason than the Nuggets are. We're averaging like 35 bench points per game. The Nuggets are only averaging 15. So this is a Nuggets team that has kind of limited itself to a 7-man rotation as we saw them go deeper in the postseason. They started to play Christian Braun a lot less than they did earlier on. And it showed where he was just barely getting playing time at the end of the Lakers series. Now, could it be because the games were closer, etc.? I don't want to necessarily definitively say like Christian Braun shouldn't have been out there. I think he's actually a decent role player, but ultimately speaking, they started to play him less. So right now they're running a 7-man rotation. Could that change against Miami? Who knows? I think Miami will run a little bit of a deeper rotation to an extent in these finals. From a fatigue, I don't want to say fatigue standpoint because I think at this point like these guys are just going to play, but I think you mentioned Kevin Love in this series. Chris, I think Kevin Love will actually see a little bit more playing time in this series than what he did at the end of the Celtics series because I don't think there is a situation where too many situations, mind you, that Kevin Love will be on the court and Bam's not there. I think for Kevin Love, the idea would be that K Love is out there predominantly if Bam is out there, because then Bam can handle the attempt at trying to guard Jokic. I really stress attempt because I know no one can guard that man one-on-one. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen. There's a reason I wanted him to be a 3-time MVP. But I think Kevin Love will actually get a little bit more playing time than what you might think here, Chris, because I don't think there's a player on the Nuggets team on the wing that's going to punish Kevin Love that someone else is not guarding. Bam is going to be guarding Jokic a lot of the time. I'm sure there will be switches with Caleb Martin probably. Jamal Murray is going to be guarded by the guys on the perimeter, Laurie, Vincent, Caleb Martin himself. Probably Jimmy on a couple possessions may guard one of those two guys. But again, this is me considering the man-to-man aspect, but we don't play man-to-man through and through. We play a lot of zone defense. That's the thing with Miami. We're a zone defensive heavy team. I think the most zone defensive heavy team in the playoffs, bar none. So I think Kevin Love will get a little bit more playing time in the series compared to how he finished it off with Boston. I think obviously Kyle Lowry coming off the bench was a big thing. Gabe Vincent being back in the lineup and being able to start is a big deal because Lowry is easily more effective on the bench than he has been as a starter for the Heat in his tenure. I think that much is clear. And you have the potential of shooting from Duncan Robinson, who looked like he's starting to get his confidence back at the end of that Celtics series, which is a massive deal. I think you have a Miami Heat team that can go on the bench very much blow for blow when it comes to going up against the Nuggets. I don't think we're outmatched Denver depth wise. I think the talent up top is where the difference lies in these two teams ultimately. Because this is my other X factor, the number twos on each team. Can Bam Adebayo play his role at a high level of what we're going to expect from Jamal Murray? Now, I'm not comparing their play styles, obviously. I'm not saying that Bam needs to match Jamal Murray offensively. That's not going to happen scoring wise. But when the offense can run through Bam efficiently, man, the offense looks pretty good for the Heat. And it takes a load off of Jimmy in the half court. If Bam can help run the half court offense to a T, and if his defense can do just enough on Jokic, you're not going to contain this, man. What do we always say about superstars, Chris? You're not going to stop them. You can only hope to bother them and contain them. If Bam could bother Jokic on a few possessions and maybe get his hand in the passing lane and have that awareness that he can stop or help direct things to where Jokic isn't finding his guys wide open. Because the thing about Jokic that is the most impressive with his assists is that he gets his guys wide open better than most players in the league. I'd say better than 99% of the league. That's why Jokic is so deadly of a passer. It's not just the fact that he averages 10 assists per game. It's he gets his guys wide open. If you can get in a situation where Bam and the zone defense as a whole can make Jokic's passes tougher to get out to the shooters. Because remember, Chris, at the end of the day, what is a good three-point shooting defense? It's not a team that forces you to necessarily shoot poorly from three all the time. It's a team that can force you to run you off the three-point line. And I think Miami can do that. I know the exception was the Celtics series. The Celtics kind of helped us out there in Game 7, missing their first 12 three-pointers. Regardless, Denver ain't going to do that. I think the performances of the number two guys to their roles is going to be a big deal. If Jamal Murray can crack the Heat's defense, and if he could just be what he was in the Lakers series, which is the player for them in clutch time and just a absolute killer scoring-wise, I'm with you. I think the series might end very quickly. It wouldn't surprise me if the Nuggets won this series in 5. And I say this as a Heat fan that believes in his team, but Denver is just that good. 2 of the top 3 players in this series are definitively on Denver. We say that for surely. Is Bam the 4th best player in the series? And if he is, how much of a margin do you give him above Aaron Gordon or Michael Porter Jr.? Right? Because after Bam, the next 2-3 guys, you know what they say, Chris? Like when you pick in a lineup of like both teams and like I'm going this guy first, this guy second, da da da. I think most people would go Jokic, Jimmy, and Murray. Do you pick Bam 4th? And even if you do pick Bam 4th, are you not picking Nuggets players for the next 3? So it's like that is the tough part where I think Miami does have the bench depth and the performance from the role players to match the Denver role players. I think we can match them role player wise. I think Jimmy is going to summon every last thing he has. Jimmy might have to miss half of next season with what he's done in these playoffs, but he's going to match as much as he can the superstar ability. But can your second guy play like the defensive player of the year candidate we've seen him in the past? That high IQ, responsible defender, play great, play tough, all that. If that can happen in this series, I think Miami can win the series. I do believe Miami can win the series. We got here for a reason. First ever team to go through the play-in since it's been instated, and we made it to the finals. We're here for a reason. I think we can win the series. Is it going to be tough? Yes. Am I not so confident because the 2-time MVP is staring me directly in the face? Absolutely. But I'm going to believe in my team. And I think we can win the series in 6. And I know you're a little bit shocked by that because series in 6 means we're not going back to Game 7 in Denver. And yeah, for all we want to say about the Nuggets being the undefeated team at home in the playoffs that they are, which they are, the Heat won 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee in the first round. They won 1 game in MSG in the second round. It's all they had to do because they handle business at home. And then in the third round, they won 3 out of 4 games in Boston. And we can say what we want to say about the Celtics. It's not easy to win playoff games in TD Garden. It's just not, especially a Game 7, which I think we were only the 5th or 6th team ever to beat Boston in a home Game 7. And they've had a lot of those. Like, this team can win on the road. I understand the thing with the altitude, and maybe it's me not giving it as much credence as I should. But I think this team can take at least a game on the road.
If there's one team to kind of, jump over that hump, it's the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
I feel like they're conditioned well enough to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Bro, we are the only team that has a body fat percentage as a goddamn requirement going into the preseason.
That is true.
Like, this team demands it. This team expects you to be at your physical peak when you enter the arena, when you enter training camp. And if you're not, you're going to be punished with a lot of running. Like, there are stories of Pat Riley, even in his later years, coming down on the court and freaking taking off his suit, taking off that nice Armani suit that he's allowed to just walk in any Armani store and like buy a suit for free, basically, or something like that. Like, if there is a team to go past what Denver is, it's the Heat. Literally and figuratively, because we're literally the only team left between them in a championship. But I think I'm not going to say the word that everyone always says, even though it does exist, but I think the mindset, I think the discipline, I think the play style, I think the attention to detail, I think the coaching adjustments, I think the will is there for that Miami can do it. And again, I'm not going to pick against my team now that we've gone this far. The Bucks series was the only series in this postseason that I picked against Miami. And that was with Giannis fully healthy at the start of it. I'm not picking against my team again because Lord knows I'm not going to hear the end of it, especially because Chris bullies me off mic, guys. He bullies me. No, I'm kidding there. But in all seriousness, I'm going Heat in 6. It's going to be difficult. Jokic is going to be a beast, but
he's going to kill you too with those shots that he makes too.
Bro, I don't understand how he makes those shots. He just falls away. It's like, He really is amazing. He is, as what some people say, he's basically a loaf of bread playing basketball out there. But goddamn, like he's very
What a
good at it.
compliment.
Yeah, he's also lost a lot of weight in recent years. But irregardless, yeah, give me my team. Give me the Heat in 6 in this series.
So 2 things to kind of cap this off. Number 1, I think it's important for the Miami Heat if they want to win this series, I do think they kind of have to win game 1. I know a split is whatever. I think they'll be fine with the split, but game 1, I think the momentum is truly on their side. Because that puts the pressure on the Nuggets to win game 2. But I think if you give the Nuggets, if the Nuggets win game 1, they kind of smell blood in the water. It's just like, all right, well, we control. It's just like, okay, we won game 1. Let's close this real quick. I think the Heat really do truly need to win game 1, and they've won game 1 throughout this whole playoffs, right? And they've been on the road for all of them. They've won game 1.
Yep.
Can they continue that streak? I think it'll be important for them. So they'll be happy with the split, but I do think game 1 is mostly important. I just think if Nuggets take game 1, they're just like, all right, let's finish this quick. Win game 1, we definitely win game 2. Then they'll be like, all right, well, we'll need 1 in Miami, and then that'll do it for them. So I think Nuggets, they're a team that could smell blood quickly. The second thing that we have not brought up yet, Tyler Hero possibly coming back for game 2 or 3. I don't know how effective he will be because it was a shooting hand for the fingers that he broke, but I think they'll ease him into it. I do think they desperately need him, especially against the Denver Nuggets. Do you think if Tyler Hero does play, like how effective do you think he'll be, and do you think they'll play him a lot?
I think
Obviously it's subjective, but
right. I think he'll play off the bench predominantly for that. I think the thing with Hero, what will be a big boon to him coming back, is just another guy to bring the ball to the goddamn half.
Are you afraid it might affect the flow because they've established a kind of flow this far?
Yes and no, because I feel like always inserting a guy can throw it off, but I also think, again, we're the team that could probably counteract that. And I think Tyler, seeing this postseason, Tyler's been ingratiated in and has grown up in this Heat culture. And I think that he is going to understand that he has to play a different role coming back from injury than he would have had he been healthy this entire time. I think that he will play within the offense, and I think that his role is to help be a playmaker, help try to get guys open. And if he's wide open, take the shot. If it's the best shot on that play, I want him to take the shot. He's getting shots up. He's looking good in shoot around. I know it's shoot around, but it looks like the hand isn't necessarily bothering him. Play to your strengths. And I think Spo is going to, when he does reinsert him in the series, I think Spo is going to try to play to Tyler's strengths as much as possible and try to limit what happens out there. If he's going to play bad, Spo's going to bench him. Like, that's just a matter of fact. It's Tyler Hero. If he looks like he will be a net negative out there, he's not going to play 20, 25 minutes. He'll play 15 or less, maybe even 10 or less, if he's not going to be effective out there. So he is the definition of we have to wait and see how he plays. But just the idea of it, I think it can be done, and I think he can be worked back in because I think the understanding is who is running this offense. And I think that's more valuable than anything else.
For sure. I just hope we get a decent series. Just want a good finals matchup. That's all I want. But I'm just happy that it's these 2 teams. I really am. Hey man, this would be the first Nuggets championship, right? Ever?
Yep, because this is their first finals appearance.
Yeah. First finals. Wow, yeah, and first finals appearance. So, I don't have a team that I'm rooting for necessarily. I do, because again, I love Jimmy Butler and I love Nikola Jokic. Either one of them getting their first ring would be good. I think because I've digged myself deep into narratives with the Jokic and Embiid, I kind of need Jokic to win this one. But
here's the thing. Like, this is unfortunate for me because if the Heat hadn't, if we had lost, I would have been rooting for Denver the entire time in the finals.
For sure.
Because I too want Nikola Jokic to kill whatever is left of the narratives that Embiid could challenge him for best center in the league.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I'm happy that you're happy. So
thank you.
That would be the positive of the Heat winning. Well, that'll do it for this week. What a stacked episode indeed. It's final season across all sports. The NBA draft will be approaching soon. DeAndre Hopkins rumors in the NFL. We'll talk about that. Just a little quick thing I want to say before you sign us off, Jurg.
Yep.
I hope the Bills lose every fucking game next season. Because I fucking hate Josh Allen because he cuffed up.
He took our Bay away from us.
He took Haley Steinfeld away from us because we obviously had a shot with her beforehand. But, man, I hope that Mahomes just rips him a new one. So, fuck you, Josh Allen. Yeah. Go ahead, Jurg. Where can they find us on the socials?
In what is officially an anti-Josh Allen and anti-Buffalo Bills podcast, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you listen to us on a weekly basis here on the Somewhat Sports Podcast. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify at Somewhat Space and then Sports. In there, to find the podcast, you see the beautiful logo created by the master of the pod himself, Grandmaster Chris, our A1 Day 1 graphics guy. And please, like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let us know. Follow us on Spotify. Give us 5 stars. Please comment. What do you want to hear more from us? What do you want us to talk about more? What games do you want us to play? I'm sure we're going to have an off-season game this off-season, potentially. We're going to talk about baseball again very soon, much ladies and gentlemen. And the NFL is just weeks away. It's like, less than 100 days at this point. So the sports calendar continues to turn, but the Somewhat Sports Podcast will continue to churn out content as we always do, because this is the best sports podcast out there. And like I said, first day hitting 90 degree. If summer's officially here, then that means the summer of the Somewhat Sports Podcast 2023 has begun. And please join us for the ride.
Beautifully put as always, Jurg. Beautifully put as always. Appreciate you steering the ship with me this week. No Dame. Let's keep it that way. To all the listeners listening, if you made it this far, we love you. We appreciate you. And until next time, peace.